Hi, my name's Professor Jeff Walker. I'm the Head of Department of Civil Engineering in Monash University, and it's my pleasure today to give the welcome to the SPARC Monash Civil Engineering webinar. The SPARC Hub, as it's known, is an industry hub funded by the Australian Research Council with 21 industry partners and 8 partner universities led out of Monash University. It also has a number of overseas partners and quite a few PhD scholars and chief investigators involved, as you can see on the screen here. As I said, the hub is led out of the Department of Civil Engineering at Monash University. For those who might not be familiar with Monash, we are located in the city of Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. We are one of the prestigious group of 8 universities by the Australian ranking system, and we are highly regarded in our fields, as you can see the various rankings listed on the screen there. Given that today's webinar is related to project management, it's appropriate that I just mention briefly about 2 of the master programs that we offer from our department. The first one is a Master of Infrastructure Engineering and Management program, which can be done in 1.5 years full time or can be done part time, and it's an entirely online program giving you the ability to balance your work and study commitments. And you can find more information about this on our department's webpage. We also have a Master of Project Management. It's delivered in 1 to 2 years, either part-time or full-time, and is delivered in day, evening and block modes according to your availability. And likewise, more information about this Master's program can be found on our department's webpage, or you can send your requests through to Arun from the SPARC Hub. I'd now like to welcome and introduce our speaker for today's event, Dr. Gamini Kodikara, who's a senior consultant at Hinds Blunden Proprietary Limited, and offers professional contract and project management services to the construction industry on a part-time basis. Gamini has also served as a director and a principal at Hinds Blunden until July 2017. Gamini was the hub manager of the SPARC Hub at Monash University during September 2018 to May 2019. And Gamini was the head of the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka in 2002. Gamini has over 30 years experience, including 25 years in contract administration and management. He has gained extensive knowledge in modern contract and project management practices, and also provides academic services on engineering contracts and procurement. Gamini provides contract management advice and specialist services in preparation of programs, analysis, evaluation and determination of time and cost-related claims, and prepares expert reports on various claims for representation at mediation, arbitration and litigation. Gamini has also served as a senior academic and has undertaken numerous research work in construction project management area. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gamini to begin this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey Walker. I will now share my screen before I go to the presentation. Okay. Let me share the screen first. I hope everybody can see the screen now. And thank you, Jeffrey Walker, Professor, for the nice introduction. And I must first admit that this is my first webinar presentation. So please excuse me, bear with me any mishaps, many mistakes. So I'll try my best to present to an audience. This is my first presentation to a blind audience where I don't see the audience. So I will not be able to gauge whether you are bored or whether you are not interested. So I'll try my best to present my first webinar. So, and before I go on, I will just have to touch base with where I work. So I worked in Hinds Blunden last time and then retired from work, and I work now as a part-time consultant to the Hinds Blunden. And just to touch base with what I do at Hinds Blunden. So Hinds Blunden offers preparation of claims, project management, contract administration services, and we provide services for the in front of the mediations, adjudications, arbitration cases, and then the litigations. We provide independent expert advice for court cases as well. So, and today's presentation is project management in functional organizations. And if you have questions, and there's a process to do the questions and answers, and click on Q&A and type in the slide number and question, and then later on I think Jayant will moderate the question and answer session. And today topics, I have 7 topics to discuss. The first 3 topics are actually the basics, the project management concept, and I'm not going to explain in detail these aspects. And if you need to learn more, I would reckon, maybe you can read a book such as Project PM Book, Body of Knowledge Guide. This is a very good project. I mean, I must first confess that I don't get any commission from this book, or I don't have any partnerships with these organizations, but I must say that it's a very good book where you can read and learn. Or else you can go and follow a certificate programs, as Jeffrey suggested. You have master's courses and undergraduate courses in Monash as well. So to learn project management, I would recommend you need to follow one of those courses. So I'm not going to explain in detail those 3 topics, but of course the topics 4 to 7 I will go into detail and discuss with my experience with respect to those topics. And so what is a project? First of all, to do project management, to understand project management, you need to understand what a project is. So the project basically is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique or service. And organizations perform work. Work generally involves either operations or projects. So when you look at operations are repetitive and ongoing work. And the projects are, it has a start time and end time. And it works by people, constrained by limited resources, the cost and the time, and then the scope of work, the quality, they are all constrained. And the projects are planned, executed, and controlled as project basis. That's the basic definition of projects. I'm not going into detail, into that aspect. You can read about that. And the project management is, is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and then techniques to project activities in order to meet the project requirements. So project management team typically knows competing demands for scope, time, cost, risk, and quality. It's a competing demands, and then there are stakeholders with different needs and expectations are involved with this project. So the project management is to manage these, manage the time, manage the cost, manage the risk, manage the quality, and more importantly, manage the stakeholders with different needs and expectations. The stakeholders, some of the stakeholders may be affected positively because of the outcome of the project. Some of the stakeholders, in fact, may be affected negatively because of the outcome of the project. So we will discuss in detail the stakeholder management later. So, and then project management is involved through the use of the project management processes, initiating, planning. So I'm not going to explain all this as in detail, as I have explained to earlier, because project management is a vast subject. There are modules and modules with respect to the project management. We can't discuss this in just a presentation. So I will just touch base, and then you can, if you need more detail, you can read the book or you can do for short courses or in fact master's degree 2-year programs are there. So when you look at the project management context, these are the basic context. Project, you learn project phases and you learn project life cycles and the stakeholders, organization influences, key general management skills. Now, they are the key general management skills that we would like to have as a project manager. So those skills are finance and accounting, sales and marketing, research and development, manufacturing distribution, and the strategic planning, operational planning, and organizational structures, and then the management, the human resource management, motivation. So you can see that there are big modules. So we can't discuss everything in just a short presentation like that. Only thing is that as a project manager, if you want to develop your project management skills, you need to understand and have the basic. You don't need to be a champion of all this. You don't need to be a expert on finance as well as expert in operational planning and expert in human resources. So you don't want to be a champion of everything. But as a project manager, you need to understand the basic principles. You need to understand the basic concepts. You can employ specialists, experts. If you are the project manager of a project management team, you can employ the specialists, experts in these areas for your project. But you need to understand, you need to know what they are doing. You need to understand, you need to be able to guide them in the right path for your project. They might have all the skills bases, all the expertise in their area, but it's your management skills that will guide them towards your project. But for that, you need to understand all these management skills. That's the idea of project management skills, to be understood and managed by the project manager. And then all these other aspects, project stakeholder management, we'll discuss in detail later, and the organizational influence, because the organizations, when you look at a project, you are in an organization, and your organization systems and the structures will influence the project. Your organization may be a project-sized basis. Maybe that means your organization take the projects as projects, and your management structure is project-based. So then it's easy to apply the project management principles. Whereas some of the organization may be a functional organization where you have a hierarchy with functional managers and functional systems at different places working as functions. We will discuss that in our later topic. So as a project manager, you need to understand what's my organization, how my organization affect my project. That's the influence of the organizational system and the structure for my project. We'll discuss that in later. And the project stakeholders means, that's where sometimes the projects go wrong. You need to identify who are the project stakeholders of my project, and identify every project stakeholder. It's easy to identify, the direct stakeholders, but there are indirect project stakeholders. We will discuss that again in later. And the project phases and project life cycle are another module, I should say that. So one aspect that is very important is that the project phases are the when you look at individual project phases like the concept phase, and then the feasibility phase, and the business case, design phase, and then the detailed design phase, execution phase, commissioning, operations, handover, they are all phases. And all these phases need to be managed such that after one phase, the second phase is authorized to go. So we sometimes call the end of the project phases as kill points or the exit points. So and at the end of one phase, the second phase should be authorized to be committed. For example, after the business case phase, it should be clearly understood and defined that, yeah, the business case is passed, tick, you go ahead and now develop the design, because we can understand we have a business case for this project. So that's the project life cycle. So as you can understand, you can appreciate, I'm trying to explain that in very basic, broad basis, but please read more on these aspects. And then there are the other project management knowledge areas: integration management, scope management, type management. They are all modules of this project management concept. Again, I'm repeating myself again. Please, it's not the objective of this session to go through all these aspects. And then project management process groups. This is the basic concept of project management. And please read the book, or you can follow one of the courses in Monash University or any university, or a certificate course, or the Project Management Institute has a chapter in Melbourne, and that chapter provides certificate courses. Again, I'm not a partner, I don't get any commission from those places, but if you need to do, I heard that one of the best chapters of Project Management Institute, where you can go and learn all these, concepts. And when you look at a phase, the planning process, executing process, and controlling process, that's the main processes that you need to understand and apply for phases of project. The phase may be in the feasibility study. So you initiate the process, plan, execute, control, the feasibility study, and close it. Then you go to the next phase. So, and that's how the systems are approached. So the process are initiate, plan, that's the phase start and phase finish, and then the execute and then the closing. That's how the project are planned and processed. So that's the first phase. So you do this exercise for this phase. Say that's the feasibility phase or initiation phase, and then the implementation phase, you do the same exercise here, and then you connect. So when you do that, that's how you manage project phase by phase through the project life cycle. Although I have presented that in sequential basis, I must say that this is in fact overlaps like this, because in reality we don't wait until one phase is finished. You commence the second phase before the initial phase is finished, but taking the risk. So you can take an acceptable risk and take the next phase start before closing out the previous phase, because that is we call fast tracking. Otherwise, but that's the reality. So when you do that, sometimes you may be doing that phasing, before you finish this phase, you commence this phase. But of course, the problem would be when you do that, this is the business case. So you commence your design phase here before the business case finished. So you take the risk of employing designers and paying designers and spending on designs before the business case gave a result. Okay, tick, go ahead. But they are the acceptable risk. That's how the projects are managed. So, and when you look at that way, so if you take this, I'm sorry, and you can see that therefore the planning process should be one big process. So here you have a planning process, here you have a planning process, and then you have planning. Each phase has planning processes. But in reality, your planning process commences here, and that planning process include the planning of these processes as well, these phases. So this planning actually is a combined effect of that. So although you have, each phase has planning process individually, in reality, a good project manager does the planning process continuous throughout the project. So when you plan here, although you are in the feasibility study, you plan the processes, the control measures, the executing measures of these phases as well here, so that by that way you can plan and process your deliverables of these phases as well. So in reality, your process, the planning process goes like that, one big process, because the project planning is the essence and the basic backbone of project management. So I would say that, so that's the backbone or the essence. So you plan, then execute, control. So when you do planning here, so that planning should include the planning processes of the executing process as well, and the controlling task as well. So the controlling would be, maybe earned value method, or maybe S-curves, or budgets, audits. So you would do these controlling measures here. So, and you plan, and then you go and do the execution. You execute, you do your tasks, and once you do the task, you go back and control and check the feedback, and you normally go back. So it's an iterative process. You go back and correct, because we all know that the plans would not work as planned. So always the plan after the first commencement, the plan would be obsolete. We call them the dynamic planning. So you would have to have plans, plan B, plan C, or the fallback positions, fallback planning, all are planned here with these executions and controlling measures or the documentation. So that's the planning cycle. So that's the basics, essence of the project management cycle. And managing the project stakeholders. Now, it's very important to identify who are the stakeholders of the projects. So it's where, normally you would consider project manager, customer, performing organization, and the sponsor or the funding person. They are very easy to identify as the stakeholders of projects. But it's not only that. So it's individual organizations who are actively involved in the project, or this is important, whose interest may be positively or negatively affected as a result of project execution. A very good example is, consider a factory, a manufacturing factory, and there's a new project coming in to introduce a new system, new design. That is a new project. So that project comes in, and you try to identify who are the stakeholders of this project, a new way of manufacturing this product. So when you look at in that manufacturing industry, factory, there may be an assembly line worker who is working as a packaging person. Is that person a stakeholder of that new product? The reality would be, if the new product is trying to introduce automation of packaging, and what will happen to that factory line assembly worker? That person may be redundant, because his task would be now automated. Now you can see that therefore that assembly line worker is also a stakeholder of that new project, the new design. So when a project manager embarks on that sort of a project, he must understand, there are some stakeholders who are negatively impacted by this project. I must look after them as well from the day one. How is the project management skills? You may have to negotiations, redundancy packages, educate them, or maybe restructure the organization so that that person can be absorbed in another sector. So that's how the projects are managed. So otherwise, what happens is that halfway, when you do the business case and you try to go to the design phase, there will be roadblocks. I can give you classic examples of these, project management and then the stakeholder management. One of the projects that I got involved, I thought that there are the things that I can give to the audience, with the experience, how the stakeholders are, not thought of, So one of the projects that I have been involved, a wind farm, the big turbines with, rotors and green energy, that sort of a project. And there were 150 numbers of wind turbines, massive, 80 meters high, 100-meter diameter of the blades, the rotors, in a rural area. And project management team had a big time of identifying the stakeholders clearly of this project, and then address the stakeholders' interest at the very beginning. So at the stakeholders, forget about this project manager, the funder, organization, owners, because they are very simple. The other stakeholders are councils in that areas, police in that area, and then the farmers in that area, the general public in that area, who may be positively or negatively impacted by this project. So for example, the council area, road sector areas wanted their rural projects to be widened. And of course, because this project has a big turbines, the heavy turbines, and the blades of the turbines are about more than 50-meter blades. So when you transport them, the rural area roads were not that good. So the project had to strengthen the roads, strengthen the culverts, strengthen the bridges, and then widen the roads, take away the bends so that, so the project had a budget for that. And the council in that area said that, no, hang on. No, we want this road to be this way, this road to be that way, and this bridge, no, just don't go and strengthen the aspects, demolish and have a new bridge. So they wanted to have improve their area using the project budget. How you manage that stakeholder is a question. And again, the farmers, these wind turbines were installed in the farmers' backyards or their area. So there have been negotiations, and then they were paid some months for leasing, for the area to have these wind turbines. And suddenly, after commencement of the project, after some time, there's an injunction order from the court to stop the work, because I'm not going to use the names, the actual names. Say Mr. Farmer White has gone to the courts and got an injunction order to stop the work. What happened was that Mr. Farmer McDonald has, when he has gone to the pub over a beer, he has said that from this project, I'm paid $25,000 a month, a year, for my lending my land for these projects. And it happened to be Mr. Smith, who were there in that pub at that time, were paid only $10,000. And Mr. White, although he doesn't have a wind turbine on his farm, it is there in the next farm, hasn't been paid, zero. So of course he goes to the courts and asks, hang on, no. So what is the case? How he's going to say that he's being negatively impacted? He says, because of the wind farms, the hum, the noise, that noise, because of that, his sheep are stressed. Because the sheep are stressed, their wool production is low. So I'm negatively impacted. So please stop this project. You might be thinking, hang on, how is that a case? In fact, you would not be surprised to go and see that. I'll share my, please bear with me for sharing this. So if you look at here, say that's an abstract. a research paper written, go there. Chronic stress can also affect reproductive function, impair body and wool growth. So you can see the research playing a field here, right? So I'm not saying that they have used this, research abstract, but there are examples and support documents for that person to go and take an injection order. So my point is that, so you might not think stakeholders in that way. So, but when you have that sort of projects, you need to go there and see all these stakeholder effects. And most of the time, these stakeholder interests are competing each other. One might say this, the other might say that. So they are competing interests. If you try to solve this person's stakeholder interest, this person's stakeholder interest may be not handled or managed or answered. So that's the management skills, the project management team skills, how we manage these stakeholders. They are the important project planning aspects. You will learn these theories, but with practice, with the experience of the project management team, you will learn how to understand. So another project that I can explain, I'll give you, my idea is to give you some examples where these, the project management concept of managing project stakeholders come into the picture. Another project that I can give you is that one of the projects, the bridge project, the highway bridge project, there was a, during the construction stage, they had to go and, now when you do the piers, they have to go and clear the grass under the area, the valley, because of the grass, there were frogs there, green frogs, and because of that, there were snakes. Of course, the workers would not want to go to there into the valley, do the construction when the snakes are around. So they wanted to clear the grass. Clear the grass. There's an activity in the project program. You go there to clear the grass. No, you are not allowed to do the clearing because there was an environment lobby group who got an injunction order saying that, no, you can't clear the grass, you can't cut the grass because this is the period the green frogs are mating. So until such that they are mating, you can't clear the grass because it will adversely affect the green frogs. So you might think that the stakeholder is the green frog. No, sorry, no. The stakeholder is the environmental lobby group. And the problem was that the project management group should have identified that and addressed that issue before this incident. So they should have shifted the project management schedule program so that you would, do not take the clearing activity during that period. So there are the things you might understand when you go and manage the stakeholder. There are plenty of examples I can sort, but I think we don't have time to go through all. And then I'll come to the management of the project organization. So I will go through these topics one by one and then explain our how we approach when you do the project management, when you do the projects and manage these projects. First of all, when you have a project from the organization, you prepare an organization chart for the project. So this is the typical construction sort of a organization chart. Client, project manager, and quality audit, and the consultant. The consultant might do the design, and the contractor might do the design as well. If it is a design and build, that the design activity. So you normally prepare a chart and then resource this chart. So who will be the project manager, who are the consulting team, audit team, construction team, and then you do the resourcing and identify the positions, identify the roles, identify the responsibilities, identify the task of these people, the deliverables, accountability of team members. Say if you have a team here, say consultancy team, you might have a design manager and then the quality audit is here, and maybe a procurement manager, so like that, and then the detailed design, the architect, structural engineer, geotechnical engineer, and then identify the roles, the positions, and their tasks, and then the accountability. That's how you normally resource a project. So when you do that, a chart, after preparing the chart, when you try to resource this, and then comes the project organization. So depending on your organizations, how you resource, how you identify the roles, and how you name the people into the project organization chart depends. So there are two types of organizations. Again, I must explain here. I'm not going to go into detail and explain everything here. There are modules and modules of project management concept. Just briefly, so project-based organizations are the organization which take projects. For example, architectural organizations or consultancy organizations. They work as the projects, and their tracking systems, their progress control systems, their management systems are based on projects. Non-project based organizations are such as manufacturing, say the finance sections like banks. They are non-project based organizations. They do operations. Here they do projects. And when you look at these project-based organizations, it's very easy to identify and control the projects, because all the accounting systems, control systems, progress measuring systems are based on the project. So you might be able to measure the progress against the budgets and the program based on the projects, as well as the sector basis. Say one of the organization might be doing project management services, contract management services, and geotechnical services, architectural services. So you would, under these sectors, project basis, and then the sector basis, you would control and then identify the profitability of each sector. And then maybe this state by state basis, maybe international basis. So they are easy when you have the project based organizations. And non-project based organization, you have to convert the operations to project. How you do it? Please again look at, go and read a book or follow another course to go into details. So you operate, or your operations are considered as the projects, and then you monitor and progress based on the operations, which are projects now. And when you have these organizations, then there are structures. One of the structures is the projectized structures. So in that organizations, the structural system or the management team are project basis. Each project has a team, and that team has a project manager, design manager, and then the finance manager, and all the finance team. Everything's under the project basis. So they are called project, and they are the best structures to do the project management process, project management application. But of course, we don't have that structures in many of our organizations. They are the functional and hierarchical structures. There, the staff or the employees are employed and grouped under different specialized functions. Those functions may be, say for example, if you look at the university functional organization, you will have engineering, you have architecture, you have medicine. So there are functional structures. And project management team should be aware of these, structures, and then understand the staff are, how the staffs are rewarded, how the staffs are grouped, how the staffs are managed, and then identify and then understand their responsibility structure, their reporting structure, and then implement a system for the projects. We'll go into detail in the next few slides. So this is the functional organization, a typical structure. You have a general manager, and employees are grouped under functions: design manager, engineering manager, and finance. So they are employed under different functions, specialty groups. So if you have a project here, say the design people have a project here, they have a project here, and they need some information with respect to the marketing ability of this new product. So they might want to get some, information from their marketing team. So they go up, get the design manager, talk to the marketing manager, and go to that team and get the information from them. So that's the typical functional organization structure, responsibility and the communication and the involvement. And the marketing team might say that, now hang on, before we go and advise to the design team for their project, we need some information from the finance sector about what respect to the maybe purchase ordering system or whatever. So they go there and come back, get the information, come here, come there, get the information to them. They now collate the information, get some advice, go back, go there, and go here. So that's a typical functional organization structure management handling. Of course, we can all see that that would not work for projects. So how you manage projects using the project management concept when you have a functional organization structure like this? That is we call adopt the matrix system. That's what I'm going to explain today here. So for example, if you look at the university, now I have downloaded this from the web as at July 2020. I understand that's the university senior management chart. Big, massive organization under separate functions. So when you look at here, you can see that. So here you have the Dean, Faculty of Engineering here, and under the Dean, Faculty of Engineering, I guess you have Civil here, and Professor Jeffrey Walker, heads a civil team here as a functional manager. Civil team here reports to the Dean. So you can, and then when you look at the finance sector here, so the finance sector is here, and then the legal councils are here, and the human resources sector here, and the research MRO, I think that's here. So you can see that it's a functional. Is that a functional organization? For me, looks like it's a functional organization. How they knew if the civil engineering team want to adopt, as a research project, let's say SPARC hub. When you want to set up a SPARC hub, but you need information from MRO, finance sector, and the legal counsel, and the human. So how we are going to do it? Adopt the matrix system. So we will discuss the matrix system. There are two methods to do the matrix system. One method is, now we will go back to the typical functional organization structure. Forget about the university system for the moment. A typical functional organization structure, design manager, so there are the functions. Method one would be to have another function called project management functions. And that's another sector, another division. You have project managers. So when there's a project, right? Say there's a project by the design people or whoever, appoint a project manager for that project. And then that project manager is given team from design, team from engineering. He might not want production, but he might need marketing and finance. So that's the team. The team, say Smith, John, Peter, Walker, and they report to the project manager. And they are responsible for the project wise to the project manager. Whereas they still maintain their responsibility to their line manager, functional manager, because the line manager has still the ability to fire and hire this team. And their salary scales, their incentives, their bonuses, their performances, they are all handled by their functional managers. They might say if that person is not good, it's the functional manager who will offer them that person a redundancy package. So they are responsible still to the functional manager, but for the project wise, they can communicate with authority levels. Of course, when you conduct the project in this basis, whenever, say for example, this person now provides input to this project under this project manager, if he needs more help with respect to his specialty, he will go and talk to marketing manager and get some more help, more advice in that specialty. So that's how the project is managed and operated. And of course, and this person, let's say this is Mr. John, and this person not only work for this project, he will work for other projects as well. Because if you look at, let's say, 40 hours a week person, he might not give all 40 hours a week for this project. He might give other projects as well. So you can visualize this as a 3D, no, this is the 2D picture. Look at this way. It's a 3D matrix where, the projects are managed using project management. That is the system 1, matrix system 1. The second method is this, where you don't employ project management as a separate function. You employ project managers from the division itself. And when you nominate a project manager, you nominate the project manager from the division which has the most stake in that project or the ownership of that project. And from that, you identify a project management person who has the project management capabilities, project management skills, who can run this project and nominate. Say this is the design, sort of a project. So you appoint a project manager from the design team to manage it, and you get some other members. Say this project is a finance. Maybe it's say that project may be introduction of a new payroll system. So that project may be then managed by a project manager coming from the finance team, who has the project management skills, project management capabilities. So, and the others will help as project team members. This is the second method of matrix system. Now again, you can see that it's a 3D model where this project manager who works as the project manager for this team may work as a team member of another project, because he might not work full time for this project, because that's how the projects are managed in this functional organization. It's a mix and it's a matrix. It's a 3D matrix. So while this project manager, so maybe that person may be the design manager himself here, undertaking the project as the project manager person, and this person may work for this project, say this project as a team member. And that person need to understand that, now hang on, although I am a management type person, my role for this project is a team member. That is the skill and the ability you need to train the staff in this matrix system. So the staff members, the project management team members, need to be trained and need to understand how these projects are managed. So that's how the matrix system operates. Now look at our SPARC Hub. So that's how we did our SPARC Hub development. The MRO under this research, and we got sharing from finance and sector, we got Bisa, and from legal, we got Ralph, and then here Jessica, another person from the building, because we had to set up the building, SPARC Hub headquarters, and we got Rachel James to help us from civil to do the management aspects of the SPARC Hub headquarters, and Jayantha, and that's myself, and then Aruran. So we worked as a team here, drawing team members from the functional departments, functional heads, and overall we had another layer here where we have partner investigators and the other universities that input from their functional organization, because that's a huge task. So targets were defined, progress were monitored. So we had to set up the SPARC Hub. Contracts need to be finalized, Schedule Bs need to be finalized, annexures need to be finalized, signed. It's a big task, I must admit that. And everybody worked collectively as a team, and outside stakeholders input were taken. So input from partner organizations, input from other universities, input from overseas partners, and then input from councils. The stakeholders, I remember Jayanta was going around and talking to road sector people, and saying that we identify you as a stakeholder, come and join us as a stakeholder, then we can include you as one of the stakeholder, maybe one of the partner person. So that we managed. That's how the SPARC Hub was. So I must say that we try to do we try to implement the matrix structure into our organization. That's how we develop. So you can see that the structure. So that is the overall team, the management team. They are the responsible person for the project hub. So, and the stakeholders are ARC, and we have scientific advisory board, and then we have the other councils, road sector, they are all other stakeholders, and then we have projects. Projects are under this category, and then how we resource the project. So there's a project leader, look after each project, project 1, 2, I heard that there are 17 now, and then we get from the team members from chief investigator group, part investigator group, research fellows, PhDs. So they are the functional organization, and this CI group may be coming from Monash, or maybe RMIT, maybe Queensland, maybe Swinburne. So you can see that this CI group coming from different functional groups, coming into the projects and contributing their time in kind, and then we get the money from the ARC as well as from the partner. And the partners, say ARB and EI and all these road sector organizations who are partners of this, provide the partner investigators, and their time in kind coming to these projects, and then we have identified them, categorize them, and one of the partner investigator may be working for one project, and you can see that the 3D model here. So and they are categorized and then grouped under them, and then they are and on top of that we have themes in this part. So we had a sort of a special type of matrix here. We introduced 2 layers of matrix where you have team leaders under theme as well as project under project. So you can see under teams are grouped, and then the project members are coming here. So when you do that, and if you look at the project leaders, so for this project, say under theme 2, the subproject 2.1. So you have a chief investigator, part investigator, RF, maybe we have RF or maybe not, and then a PhD student. And who is the project manager of this? Who is the project manager of this? For me, it is the lead chief investigator. We identified the lead chief investigator as the project manager for that project, responsible for cost, responsible for time, most importantly, responsible for the project deliverables and the KPIs. Because if you look at this way, they go here. So they are responsible for the overall hub project, and they get that input from these projects. And who's responsible for that? Lead chief investigator as the project manager, drawing resources from this. So that team will be managed by lead chief investigator. And one of the lead chief investigator may be Jeffrey, may be lead chief investigator for this project, whereas he may be investigator for this project, only the CI. So that's where the mix is. And when this project is handled, the lead chief investigator works as a project manager while giving input. And whereas if the same person works here as a chief investigator, that person works as a giving input as an investigator only. Now you can understand that when you look at this way, take for example, if you are a chief investigator or if you are a PI, go through the projects and identify how many hours now I have committed for these projects. There are 17 plus, I think there are plenty of projects here. Go and cross-check the involvement of these projects. So we all know that we have maybe 40 hours a week. I know that professors in the universities work maybe more than 60, 70 hours a week. So go and check your contribution to this project, because you need to go and do your other jobs as well. Lecturing, research, other PhD supervision, you have other research projects. So check the involvement here, because these projects has deliverables and time constraints. So that's the training we need when we have this project management matrix structure. We tend to go and, okay, I'm okay, I can come and give you my input here. Yes, I'll be there. But we need to have proper training how we manage our time to give into these projects. And again, I must emphasize, project manager is responsible for the delivery. And that project manager is responsible, for this, because you are responsible for the ARC. So, and when you look at the structure like this, say that's another example where you go and say that's a team. So if you look at, for example, here, say Dr. Troy is giving input to project 18 3.3, team 2.3. So maybe he's involved in other projects as well. So you need to identify the input balance. Right, now the next is the responsibility matrix. I'm trying to cover my slides in quick sessions, because I might run out otherwise time. So how you do that in industry, you go and do the responsibility matrices. So this is one of the example where we do in one of my projects, where you get the task of a project, get the role of the people, and allow the responsibilities. So as primary responsible, support responsible. And the next method would be to have this task, start time, end time of this task, and then the overall responsible is the A10 position, primary responsibility is the A72 position, and the other support staff. And this, you can see that it's only the matrix. And how this support staff is timed and included into this task, it's a big spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet comes and with another big spreadsheet where all the hours of this, for example, if you look at B13 is a role, a person. His time per week, per month, hourly basis are allocated for this task. This, of course, this sheet would not show B13 hours for this task, but there's another spreadsheet which shows B13 will give you only 4 hours for this task, and B13 will give another 4 hours for this task per week, or maybe per week for 2 weeks, like that. So that's how the responsibility matrices are developed. And that responsibility matrices with that our sheets attached with the unit rates are budgeted and monitored. So that comes to my next discussion here, charge out rate. So this is how we develop the budgets. So this is very important to consider, because when you look at a project, now we identified how the projects are now resourced, and you may be the project manager, or you may be a member of the team. How your input is valued for that project, how your input is valued in the organization, how your input is valued in the market is very important. If you want to be a good team member and then go through your career path. Say at the moment you may not be a project manager, but you want to be a project manager and you want to be a associate of your company. You want to be a shareholder, a director. For that, you need to understand, so what's my value? How I am valued to the project? You need to understand. Then only you can really see the picture, how you can prosper or progress. So when you look at the valuation of a team member, I must say that this is not the method. One of the systems that we adopt is using charge out rates, chargeable hours, and then comes the productivity of the person and the marketability of the person and how the person is fitting with the company branding, and then the team player. You can see that for that sort of a system, team player may be sort of a subsequent to this. So if you look at the how we price or estimate a project, so these are actually bogus names. I must say that I haven't used the correct names, and an example spreadsheet. You see that's the project duration 4 weeks, and Smith gives you 5. So that's the director responsible for the client, the head person, look after the client, very important role. He gives 5 hours for the report, 10 hours for the meetings, and this person is the responsible for the deliverables. I say that's the project manager for this project. He gives 25 hours for the report, 20 hours for the meetings with this unit rate. You can see the unit rate there. And then these are the team members, 40 hours and all this chargeable hourly rate. How this chargeable hourly rate is obtained, I will go and explain that. Bear with me until I share the spreadsheet with you, please. Okay, please bear with me. I hope now you can see the screen, and that's the screen where how you calculate a chargeable rate. Now I must admit here, please don't look at, oh, hang on, chairman of a CEO is paid $400,000. No, don't take that as the correct number. It may be more than that. It may be less than that. I quote some numbers here, so don't quote me saying that a chairman of a person is paid $400,000 a year, including the bonuses and incentives. No, that's a number. It may be more than that. I must say that. And then, so that's how the numbers are calculated. You get the salary, right? And then add the bonuses, incentives. At the end of the year, you give some of the members a bonus. Why? Because you want to retain that person into your organization. Otherwise, this person will leave the organization. So you identify the strength of the person and reward that person with bonuses. So it's an operation based, it's reward mechanism. And then you get the salary plus bonuses, divide that by the chargeable hours. Now, how we get the chargeable hours? Look at this. That's how we calculate the chargeable hours. So chargeable hours mean management, senior people, middle people, junior people, you might calculate differently. So 52 weeks, 40 hours a week. I must say that normally we expect to work 40 hours a week. Of course, I know that university academics work 60, 70 hours a week. So your management hours, chargeable hours or maybe different, but in normal term, and then you less annual leave, sick leave, holidays, and then you are supposed to do administrative work, marketing. You are supposed to go and market your company outside, and then you are supposed to educate yourself, new processes, new management processes, new techniques, new analysis. So that's how the chargeable hours are calculated. So management 1,520 per year, junior 1,060. So it's a simple example. You might change these numbers and change. So you go back there. So these numbers come from that spreadsheet, and then you get the average hourly rate. This divided by that, and then the overhead. So this is practically paying this person, including their bonuses and incentives. Then you need to add the overheads component. So what are the overheads? So they are the typical company overheads that you will get, management, administration, salary. So if you go here again, if you go there, say this management team are not chargeable because you can't charge them from the projects. So these are overheads component. So that goes there, management salaries. And maybe if you are a state sector, and if you have an international organizations, management, all this comes here, and then the tax fees, and then the payroll tax, all the other headings of this management overhead component, and get that. Normally you put that as a multiplier. So in this example, I put that 50%. It may be 60%, it may be 40%, or even it can go 75%, depending on your number of employees here and the heads of this cost. Depending on that, this multiplier can vary. Only thing is you have to put the number there. Then that is your average cost rate. Then add to that profit. Okay, so you get the profit. So that means you have to charge out at least this rate from that person, at least to recover 5% of profit. Then based on that information, you fix your charge out rates. Some projects I'm going to charge out, so you can see that these numbers are higher than that. Some projects I even charge this. Depending on the project, depending on your marketability of the project, depending on your grabness, whether you need this project or whether you don't need this project. You have rate 1, rate 2, rate 3, minimum rate, maximum rate, average rate. So there are different types of rate in the mix. So you get those rates, and with this, if everything goes so nicely with these chargeable hours, with these rates, so you can see that expectations of the profit, right? So that's the minimum. So that's around 1.6 million. That's the profit will be shared by the dividends. So that's how the companies are operated. So if you go back to my slide here, and you can see that, and when you look at that way, say for example, Peters charge 40 hours there. Peters come and tell you, Mr. Project Manager Smith, I spent 60 hours for this task. I spent 80 hours for this task. Now you have a problem. So this is the strike one for Peters then, because you can't charge 60 hours and 80 hours, so you have to cut down the hours. So strike one to Peters, he has not done his work properly. And on top of that, he will tell you, okay, I have done 60 hours here, and you want to cut down to 40, but you know that the work that he has done is not that good. Somebody else have to finish it, or maybe you have to finish it. So you have to cut down that to 10, maybe 15. Strike 2 to Peters. That is, his productivity is not good. And then the project managers and the directors normally work maybe monthly, maybe once in 2 months. And in one of the meters, this project manager said that, this Peters, he did this. I had to cut his hours from 60 to 15. And another project manager says, hang on, the same Peters, I had the same problem. Strike 3 for Peters. That happens. And then on top of that, the client, when you send the invoice, might say that, hang on, you are charging Peters this rate? Oh, he's not that good. I'm not going to pay him that rate. Double strike for Peters. So you can see that your valuation, your value to the project shows your value to the company. So your chargeable hours, your productivity, and your marketability. You are not marketable. You are not productive. And of course, you can't be, say for example, this is a Jacobs and Seaman, lawyers. You can't be representing Jacobs and Seaman lawyers because nobody wants you. That's the problem of having this matrix system. When you have that sort of a system in the organization, the team members are really responsible, and you need to look after yourself and go through the projects. And finally, I must explain this as well, how it is being captured using the timesheets. So of course, at the moment you might not be doing timesheets, and but that's how the timesheets are done. So if you go here, I'll share that. Please bear with me a minute. I'll share timesheet function as well. So say Peters or whoever book times for projects. So this project, he has not worked. And this project for Jacobi and Steinman lawyers, he has worked 7.5 hours Monday, 6.5 hours Tuesday, so he has worked. And for this project, he has not worked for A2B contractors for that week. And this week, again, he's working only for Jacobi and Steinman lawyers project, and project manager may be Smith, and there his work. And here he's working for this project, a different project manager, maybe a different project. And here again, different. Now he has finished his work for Jacobi and Steinman lawyers client for that project, but he's still working there. So now you can see that if I go back and share my, so this KPI, so at the very beginning, we might say that your billable hours should be at least 80%, administration should be at least 2%. So he has reached his KPIs. But then when the project manager goes and downgraded these hours, then he has a problem, because his KPI percentage may go down to even 40%. That's where the problem would be. And make sure that when you are in that sort of environment, the project managers, when they pick team members, say from the finance sector, from the manufacturing sector, from the design sector, they might say, no, please don't give me Peters. Please give me somebody else, not Peters. You don't need to be that. You want to be, when the project manager comes, give me Peters. And the other project manager comes and says, give me Peters. I need Peters. That's your evaluation. That's your worthiness of the project. That's how you get your job security in this sort of an environment. And then, of course, when you have that sort of a system, you get incentives, you get bonuses, you will be rewarded, because you will be saying, normally you will have annual reviews in this sort of environment. In the annual review, salary review, you would say that, hang on, I think I'm worth this. You should be able to say that I'm worth $250,000 a year. That's the thing that you need to develop when you go through this system. And then demand. So you should not be scared of the job security. Who should be scared of job security? Your directors, your job managers. They should be scared. Peter might leave if you don't give him shares, or if you don't give him incentives. That is the idea of when you work in this sort of a matrix systems in organizations with the job handled through project management. That should be your idea. Then you can go through the system. So I think by that I have finished my presentation. So I'll let Jayanta to handle the question answer session. Jayanta?
Yes, thank you, Gamini, for that excellent presentation with a lot of information, very useful to our scholars as well as other people who have joined this webinar. So I will ask a couple of questions are there from the audience. So first question is, how do we plan for a project when there are a lot of uncertainties and the duration of the project is not fixed? For example, because of COVID, the restrictions keep changing and the delivery date of resources are not known.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Now, I'll answer in maybe 2 or 3 steps. First of all, now when we plan for a project, so when we plan projects with respect to the time, there are 2 or 3 methods. One method is to go from bottom to down. Bottom to down approach would be, so the duration is fixed. The organization or the client would say that you need to finish this by that date. So it's fixed. So it's a bottom to down approach. Then you have to plan and manage your stakeholders, as we always think that we normally say that there's a triangle in the project: time, cost, quality. With the project management, stakeholders. So if I draw it again, so you have a triangle, time, cost, quality with the overall stakeholders. So if you press the time, fix the time, of course the cost will be affected. You will not forego the quality, so the cost may go up. So you can see that. So anything can be planned and programmed when you do the top to down program. But of course, your processes, the cost of that project will be high. You need to manage your stakeholders, including your funding organization, the client. Explain properly. If you fix the time like this will be the cost. However, if you relax the time a bit, let's say another 6 months, we can cut down the cost. So that's how, when you look at the top to down method. The other method is the bottom up, where you look at all the activities, allocate the time for activities, prepare charts, come up, and you get the time. And the time would mean so that 3 years. Then you go to the client, the funding organization, your organization, and try to sell it. That's again management skill. They might say that, hang on, 3 years? Are you kidding me? No way. So then your management skills comes again to the picture. If you want, we can do this. If you want, we can do that. But you need to compromise here. So as I explained to the audience previously, when you do the management of the stakeholders, there are competing expectations. So you need to try to manage this competing. It's not easy. But at the end, before you embark and commence the project, everybody should sit down and agree for that. So that's, I think, part 1 of the question. The question 2 would be how we do when you have a situation like this COVID-19 sort of situation. For the projects that is already happened, there's a time period fixed. And those projects have contracts. And those contracts would explain how you manage that sort of incident. I'm not going to explain how you do it, because I will be giving advice to some people then, maybe free advice, or maybe my advice will be considered as a advice. No, I'm not going to give you how you do it, but those contracts would explain how you manage that sort of a system. I can explain. They are called force majeure systems, force majeure events, where you haven't anticipated, or we call it act of God. So those contracts will explain how you manage it. Then you go through the contract process, contract admission procedure, and then do it. Hinds Blunden is one of the best for that. I must say that. Doing some sort of a marketability for the Hinds Blunden now, and any sort of a project management organization, contract administration organization would explain that. Now, the third part. If you are preparing a project now and try to fix a time frame, then factor in how you manage it. And the contract, when you sign the contract, these contract clauses, you factor in how you manage it. Fix a time. You can't have an open-ended project. Projects are not open-ended. Project has a definite start, definite finish. That's we call a project. If you don't have an end, it's called operations or programs. So fix a time frame for the project, but how we manage these uncertainties is the contractual aspect. There are experts who can do that. University has contract legal team experts. We got those expertise from our Ralph and our team. So you get that expertise from that team. I mean, I know a bit of a contract admin. I mean, I know that, but I wouldn't give that expert advice because there are lawyers, solicitors who can give you that sort of expertise. That's how you address that sort of situation. I hope I have given the answer.
Thank you, Gamini. That was a fairly detailed explanation for a relevant question, especially at the present time. So there's another question. Is it possible to use agile management methods such as Scrum and Kanban, which are common in software project management, in civil engineering project management?
For me, I'm a person who says always yes. As a project manager, I always say yes. I'm not 100% familiar with that sort of environment, I must admit, but I would give it a go because I know that any project management system in the arena that I have used, I have adopted and applied. I mean, for example, if you look at, a classic example would be earned value method system. Earned value method system is usually applied to the manufacturing industry. Very difficult to apply to the civil engineering construction industry. But I have seen some projects that have adopted that system. So those software can be adopted, but you need to put that into the system at the very beginning from the day one. And everybody should agree for. The problem would be to get the commitment of the project team members to adopt it, use it. That would be the problem. Otherwise, I would have a go on that.
Thank you, Gamini. There's another question here. What elements do you think are the most important in this approach for effective project management? I presume people are asking because many may not have thought in this detail of the project management.
So if I go here, so my understanding is that, so the question is, what are the very important elements?
Yes, I think it's almost like asking essential elements.
Yes. So if I go here and try to get that, say they are the essential skills that you need for a project manager to apply the project management systems. And if you go here, and there are the essential knowledge areas that you need to have to apply, because without this knowledge, without these essential elements, a project manager would not be able to apply the techniques and the skills. They are the essential aspects. Overall, mainly, on top of that, I must say that's the crux. With all those knowledge, planning, executing, controlling, you need to do that day in, day out, with fallback positions, with fallback programs, plan B, plan C's. That's my approach.
Thank you, Gamini. There is another question on when a company goes on to voluntary administration stage, how the committed project staff, etc., are usually managed. Would you recommend a project management software for university research or contract projects?
Right. That's a sort of a pointed question. When a company goes insolvency, bankrupt, there are I'm not a insolvency sort of a project management person where how to handle projects, organization when they go bankruptcy. To my understanding, there will be an administrator coming into the picture. There will be creditors who are following you for the money, and the individual projects will have the stakeholders for that project. Individual projects will have creditors for that project and the owners of that project. So the budgeting would be the best strategy to apply to budget, and one of the, they say the budget and the earning of this project need not go and pay the other projects' liabilities. So that's, I think an administrator would make sure that that will not happen. So individual projects will be considered as one entity budget. I must admit that I have never done in this sort of a insolvency, management of a project, but to my understanding, the management technique, project management technique that can be applied there is the budgeting and control with entities.
Thank you, Gamini. Last question, because of the time we have. Often trade-offs between, just a minute. Often trade-offs between time, cost, and quality of project deliveries need to be made. Is there a rule of thumb for achieving best outcomes?
Very good question. As I explained here, the triangle, we normally say the triangle, you press one node of the triangle, the other will go out. Press that, the other will go out. So trade-offs are managed by the project management team and the stakeholders. There's no exact rule of thumb. You should always look after time. You should always look after quality. You should always look after the cost. It depends on the stakeholder expectations. For example, if I take an example, let's say that the project is to produce a new fantastic toy to children and put that into the market, and obviously that product owner, the funding person, might want that product to finish and the toy on the shelves of the shops in November for Christmas period. So he might not forego that aspect. He might say, hang on, what's the point of having that toy in February? We might just stop the work. So you can see that it's the expectations of the stakeholders that will govern what is the trade-off. Then you might say that, now hang on, Mr. Owner, you got this project. You say that we need to finish this by this date. We can do it, but we have to double up the resources. Are you ready to pay? Then you will ask, okay, what is the outcome of that? So then the cost of the production may be, let's say, $50 a toy. He might, the marketing team might say that, oh, hang on, $50 a toy, you won't be able to sell this. So you can see, so that's how, so it's a combined effort, including all the stakeholders. And you have a classic example in SPARC as well. You have a stakeholder in your projects. You have partner investigators, and you have funding organizations by partners, and you have road sectors, and you have contractors, you have suppliers, right? So all these stakeholders, requirements must be taken into account. You can't just produce a new product and put it into the market without thinking the effect to these stakeholders of positively as well as negatively. So that's how the trade-offs. So as I said, it's competing demands. It's the project manager's skill to balance it and then go forward. Sometimes you may have to scrap the project then, but that may be the better output for everybody.
Thank you very much. Because our time is up, we need to conclude the webinar today. As the director of the SPARC Hub, I would like to thank Dr. Gamini for his excellent presentation and answering all the questions from the audience and providing his in-kind time to SPARC Hub to run this webinar. So again, we can't thank you in the usual way in a webinar, but we extend our sincere thanks to Gamini for this effort. So please join the next webinar in 2 weeks' time for the second webinar of this series. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
great day.
listening to me. Yeah.
Thank you. So that concludes the first webinar of this project management.